The stars were quiet and space was calm, but humans were not. They had moved far from Earth many years ago. They'd built cities on other planets, flew big ships across the sky, and made laws across the galaxy. Humans believed they were the best. They looked at other creatures and called them weak. They used them for work, food, or tests. To humans, there was no one stronger, no one smarter, no one better. At the top of all human power was Queen Evelyn Drake. She did not wear gold or sit on a big chair all day, walked among her silver suit, walked among her people, and gave orders with strong eyes. She spoke softly, but when she did, armies moved, ships flew, and worlds changed. Many said she had no fear. She led the human empire with a clear mind and a heart that beat only for survival and growth. Beside her were men who followed her commands. Luke Harris was a brave pilot who had seen 10 battles and won them all. He flew into danger with no doubt. Ben Carter was a soldier with wide shoulders and a quiet voice. He did not talk much, but when he did, others listened. Jason Doyle was a smart planner. He could find the weak spot in any wall, any army, or any idea. Together, they took more land for humans. They sent machines to new worlds. If the air was bad, they changed it. If there was no water, they made it. If something lived there already, they watched it. If it was a threat, they removed it. Some creatures were fast, strong, or strange, but none stood long against human power. Queen Evelyn made rules. She told her people to learn, to build, and to move forward. She believed that every planet should help the human dream grow. On Earth, history was taught in new ways. Children learned that humans were born to lead. Teachers said that the food chain had one true king, and it was not a beast or a machine. It was man and woman. The people believed it. They wore badges with the words "born to rule." They built ships named after fire and storms. They did not fear what was dark or far. They saw the stars as a map, not a mystery. But not all felt safe. In one corner of the galaxy, near a black and cold star, a small group of workers stopped sending reports. At first, the leaders said it was just a broken signal. Then another outpost went quiet. Still, no alarm was raised. People said maybe it was a storm. Maybe the sun there had sent strong waves. Machines sometimes failed, they said, and people made mistakes. But then the third site went silent. This time, there was a short message. The voice was scared. The words were broken. It said, "We made a mistake. They are watching. We are not alone." That message shook some people, but not Queen Evelyn. She stood in front of the High Council and said, "Fear is a choice." She ordered a check, but not a full search. She said the human world would not stop over one voice in the dark. Still, she could not sleep well after that night. In her dreams, she saw humans walking through fire, their ships falling from the sky, and strange shadows behind them. She woke up before the end each time. Luke Harris told her not to worry. He said they had fought harder battles. Ben Carter said maybe it was just a trick from a broken mind. Jason Doyle, however, looked quiet, did not speak for a while. Then he said, "Maybe it is not what we think it is." The Queen walked alone that evening. She looked at the stars from her window. She thought of how far humans had come. From the sea to the land, from land to the sky, from the sky to the stars. Nothing had ever stopped them, but still, something felt strange. She called her top captains. She told them to prepare a new group. She said, "This team will not go to take land. They will go to look, to learn, to listen." She gave the mission to a young woman named Nora Lane. Nora had sharp eyes and a brave heart. She was fast, smart, and kind. She never ran from fear, but she also never walked into danger without reason. Nora smiled and said, "I will not fail you, my queen." So, the ships were made ready, food and fuel were packed, maps were loaded. A team of thinkers and fighters joined her. One of them was Eli Grant, a tall man who used to fix engines, but now worked in space law. Another was Claire Maddox, who once studied plants, but now worked in deep sky science. They all came for one reason, to find the truth. As the ship left the human base, many people watched from below. Children waved flags. Old men held hands. Some smiled. Some looked afraid. The ship rose into the sky, into the unknown. And so began a new chapter. But no one knew what waited beyond the stars, not even Queen Evelyn. The ship moved through the black sky slowly, like a fish swimming in deep water. Nora Lane stood at the front window. Her hands were behind her back and her eyes stayed on the stars. She was not afraid, but something inside her felt cold. It was not space that made her feel that way. It was the silence.
Ow.
The crew around her spoke in quiet voices. They checked machines, watched the map, and waited for orders. Eli Grant walked from one end of the control room to the other. He looked at the numbers on the screen, and then at the empty space ahead. He said softly, "Still no signal." Claire Maddox sat at her desk, reading old reports. Her fingers moved across the screen, looking for patterns. She had read every message sent from the 3 lost outposts. The last message, the one with the scared voice, stayed in her mind. It had played over and over again. "We made a mistake. They are watching. We are not alone." No one had said it out loud, but they all felt the same thing. Something was wrong. Stars were too quiet and the path was too easy. They had traveled for 5 days and had seen no sign of trouble, but that only made them more careful. On the 6th day, they reached the first outpost. It was a small place built into a rocky moon. The lights were off and the doors were shut. There was no sound, no movement, no sign of life. The team landed the ship and walked inside. The rooms were clean, almost too clean. Tables were in place, chairs were upright, and tools were where they should be. But there were no people. No food left out. No clothes on the floor. It looked like the people had just stood up and walked away. Eli checked the power system. It was still working. Claire found the logs. The last log was short. It said, "They are here," then nothing more. Nora called the Queen's base and sent a report. She said, "We found no bodies, no blood, no fight, just silence, requesting deeper search." The Queen read the report. She sat alone in her room, thinking. She wanted to believe it was just a mistake. Maybe the people had left for another post. Maybe they had used escape ships. But her heart told her something else. She gave permission to move on. The second outpost was farther away. It was built near a ringed planet. It had been a science center. People there had studied the stars, weather, and time. Now it was quiet too. The team landed, stepped inside, and saw the same thing. Rooms were clean, no signs of fight, but the workers were gone. Nora found a message hidden in the files. It said, "They copy us. They are learning." Claire looked at the word copy and felt her skin grow cold. She said, "What does it mean? Who is copying? What are they learning?" They searched for days. No answers came, only more questions. On the 9th day, they reached the 3rd outpost. This was the newest one. It had only been active for 6 months. It was a farming base, built to grow food for nearby ships. When they arrived, the crops were dead, machines were broken, and the air was filled with dust. This time, something was different. There were marks on the ground, like footprints, but too smooth and too perfect. There were holes in the walls, but they did not look like from weapons. It looked like something had passed through without touching the edges. Eli walked through the halls and said, "It feels like they were taken, not killed." Nora nodded. She said, "But by who and why?" That night, Claire worked late. She was alone in the lab, looking at the data. She compared all the messages. One word kept showing up. Watch. Sometimes written once, sometimes 3 times. She whispered, "Who is watching?" Then she heard a sound behind her. She turned, but no one was there. She shook her head and smiled a little. "It's just my nerves," she said. But the sound came again. She ran to the control room and told Nora what she heard. Nora checked the cameras. One of them was not working. It had gone black 2 minutes ago. Eli went to check. He walked down the hall with a light in his hand. His voice came through the radio. "Nothing here, just an old panel." He fixed the camera. But when he came back, he looked pale. Said, "I felt something. Not a person, but like a thought watching me." Nora told everyone to stay together. She ordered the ship to be locked. She said, "We are not leaving, not yet, but we move with care." On the 12th day, they found something strange. A small metal ball, smooth and cold. It was under one of the beds in the farm outpost. Claire studied it. She said, "This is not ours. This is not human-made." The ball had no wires, no buttons. But when she touched it, it showed light. A map maybe? A signal? Something moved across the screen, like a shape trying to speak. Nora said, "We take it back to the Queen." They left the outpost and flew back. But the ship felt different now. Everyone was quiet. The stars no longer looked safe, or the crew slept with one eye open. Back at the main base, Queen Evelyn waited. She stood on the landing pad as Nora and her team stepped out. They bowed.
Ow!
Nora held out the metal ball.
Ow!
She said, "We did not find them, but we found this." Evelyn looked at it. The light inside the ball blinked. It was not a message. It was a warning. And far, far away, something watched. The metal ball sat in the center of the dark room. Smooth surface shined under the lights. Queen Evelyn stood with her hands behind her back. Her eyes did not move away from the ball. Nora Lane stood beside her. Claire Maddox, Eli Grant, and 2 new guards were also there. No one spoke. The ball had started to show more pictures. Strange shapes moved across its surface. They changed like water, sometimes fast, sometimes slow. Claire watched closely. She said, "It is not just a map, it is something more. It is showing steps, or maybe orders." Evelyn turned to her and said, "Do you understand what it wants?" Claire shook her head and said, "No, not yet, but it is learning from us." That was the word that stayed in everyone's mind. Learning. Evelyn ordered the best minds to join the study. More scientists came from other parts of the empire. They worked day and night watching the ball, recording its changes, trying to talk to it. But the ball never answered with words. It only showed shapes and light. Nora said, "Maybe it does not speak like us. Maybe it speaks in patterns." The scientists tried sending signals back. They used light, sound, heat, and movement. At first, nothing happened. Then one day, the ball blinked fast. It showed a shape, then copied the light they had sent. Claire said, "It is copying again." She looked worried. At the same time, news came from far stations. Small scout ships had gone missing. First 1, then 2, then 5. No messages were sent. The last image from one ship showed a shadow moving fast toward the window. After that, black screen. Evelyn called a meeting with her top leaders. She spoke in a clear voice. She said, "We are being watched. We are being studied. And now we are being taken." The room went quiet. No one had answers. No one even had ideas. Humans had always been the ones who watched, who studied, who took. Now, the roles had changed. A new team was formed. It was called Sentinel Task Group. This team was not sent to attack. They were sent to find, to see, and to survive. Mason Burke was chosen as the leader. He was tall, calm, and quiet. He had led many missions, but this one felt different. Claire Maddox joined him. She said, "I know how the ball thinks. It knows me now." She had started to dream of the shapes. In sleep, she saw them move, grow, and spin. When she woke, her hands tried to draw them without knowing why. A small ship was built just for the mission. It was fast, light, and quiet. It had no weapons, only tools for study. Mason said, "We are not going to fight, we are going to understand." He did not smile when he said it. The team left during the night. Only a few knew where they were going. Even Evelyn did not tell the full plan to her council. She said, "Too many voices make too much noise. We must move like shadows." As the ship flew into the dark parts of space, Claire sat in the lab watching the ball. It had changed again. Now it showed a new shape, like a circle with sharp lines. Eli looked over her shoulder and said, "That looks like a gate." Claire nodded. She said, "Maybe it is showing us the way." On the 5th day, they saw something strange. A moon with holes like a honeycomb, but too perfect, too smooth. They went closer. Inside one of the holes, they found metal. It was not from Earth. It looked like something had built a home there, but no lights, no sound, just deep silence. They landed and walked inside. The air was cold and dry. The walls were black. No doors, no signs. Just a long tunnel. As they moved, the ball in Claire's hands started to glow. The light matched the walls. Mason said, "It is reacting." They followed the light. The tunnel opened into a wide room. In the middle was a tall shape, smooth like the ball, with the same patterns. Claire stepped forward. She placed the ball on the ground. It rolled on its own and stopped at the base of the tall shape. The tall shape opened. Inside was a chair, or something like a chair. It was not made for a human, but it was empty. Around it were small lights that blinked slow and steady. Claire said, "This is a ship or a machine, maybe both." Eli touched the wall. It changed color. Soft sound filled the room, like breathing. Mason raised his hand and said, "Back away," but it was too late. The light grew bright. Then, the machine showed pictures, not human pictures, not made by hands. They were moving forms, lines, and circles. Some looked like the ball, some looked like the places where the outposts had vanished. Claire stared at them. She said, "They are showing us what they saw, what they learned from us." Mason said, "This is not a trap. It is a message." Claire turned to him. Her voice was shaking. She said, "They are not just learning. They are becoming more. They are using our ways. They are copying our minds. And soon they will not just watch, they will act." Back on Earth, Queen Evelyn stood by the window. She watched the stars again. She felt a change in the air. A new report came in. Another colony had gone quiet. No message, no sound, just silence again. She looked at the map. The missing places were forming a line, like a path leading somewhere, maybe toward the center of the empire. Thus she whispered to herself, "They are not running from us. They are coming to us." And the ball, still glowing in Claire's hands, showed a final shape. It was Earth. The sky over Ardent Reach was not calm. Ships moved like insects in the air, lights flashed from towers, and soldiers ran from one base to another. Ardent Reach was the strongest outpost in that part of the galaxy. It was built inside rocks and metal walls, with strong shields and deep tunnels. People believed it could never fall. Queen Evelyn sat in the command room, looking at the reports. More colonies had gone silent. Some showed strange images before they vanished. Others sent no message at all. One report showed a shadow passing over a mountain, blocking the sun for a full minute. Evelyn knew this was not a storm, not a system error, not a game. She stood and spoke to her guards. She said, "Prepare the fleets. Call every captain. We will not wait for them to reach our door." The guards ran to obey her orders. Back on the research ship, Claire looked at the glowing ball. It now showed only one image, a moving circle that spun slower each hour. She said, "It is counting down." Mason did not speak, but he watched her carefully. Eli checked the systems and said, "Something is coming." They turned their ship and flew back toward Ardent Reach, but the space around them did not feel empty anymore. On the second day of flight, the alarms went off. Something was following them. No sound, no signal, just a shape in the dark. It moved without light, without engine fire, and it stayed just far enough not to be seen clearly. Claire looked back again and again. She said, "It is learning our speed, our path, our fear." Mason said, "We cannot lead it to the base. Turn the ship and change the path." They moved fast, taking a long road home. "The dark shape did not follow this time," Claire said. "Maybe it wanted us to see it. Maybe that was the plan," Eli said. "It did not need to speak. It only needed to be seen once." When they reached Ardent Reach, the station was full of new ships, weapons, and soldiers. Queen Evelyn had already started the defense. She stood in a large hall with leaders from every planet. She spoke clearly. She said, "We have ruled for a long time. We have watched others, taken what we needed, and now something watches us." She pointed to the screen behind her. The shape of Earth was there, glowing red. She said, "They are not just coming, they are choosing us as their target. We must act now." Claire stepped forward and gave her the ball. Evelyn held it in her hands. The light inside was cold. She asked, "What does it want?" Claire said, "Not to talk, not to share, only to become more." That night, the skies over Ardent Reach changed. The stars seemed to blink and move. At first, people thought it was just dust or wind. Then the signals started. Unknown signals, fast and sharp. They hit every channel, every screen, every machine. Then silence. The lights went out. The power failed. For a full minute, the strongest base in the galaxy was blind. When the lights came back, the sky was full. Shapes floated above them. Not ships like human ships, but smooth forms, without wings or engines. Did not shoot, did not speak, did not move fast. They just watched. Queen Evelyn gave the order. She said, "Fire once. Only once." A single blast shot from the ground and hit the closest shape. It vanished. Not broken, not burning, just gone. Then the others moved. They came down fast, cutting the air. The sky turned white. Towers fell. Ships lost control. Weapons fired in every direction, but the shapes did not fall. They broke through metal, passed through walls, and moved like they knew every part of the base. Eli tried to help the engineers, but one shape passed near him, and the wall beside him melted. He pulled two men out of the fire and said, "They are not just fast, they are thinking." Mason led a group of soldiers into the tunnels. He said, "Fight smart, not hard." Claire stayed near the command room. The ball in her hand now showed images from inside the base, as if it could see everything. She said, "They are using us against us. They know where we go, what we fear, how we fight." Queen Evelyn did not run. She stood in the center of the base, giving orders. She said, "We hold the ground. We do not fall." But deep down, she knew something had changed. The battle went on for hours. Mason set traps, using broken machines to create blasts. Some of the shapes fell, but most moved around the danger. Soldiers fired, but the enemy kept coming. Eli ran into a power room and turned off the whole section, buying more time for people to escape. Claire found a signal point and sent a message to Earth. She said, "Do not wait. They are not here to fight. They are here to change everything." Near the last hour, the Queen called her guards. She said, "Prepare the escape ships. Save who we can." But she did not plan to leave. Mason found her near the main hall. He was bleeding but alive. He said, "We can't win here, but we can learn." He gave her a device full of data. He said, "They want to be like us, but they do not feel. They only copy." The Queen took the device.
Oh.
She looked around at the burning halls. She said, "Maybe we made a mistake. Maybe we forgot what fear was." One ship rose from the base, carrying Claire, Eli, and others. They looked down as Ardent Reach burned. The shapes did not follow. They stayed behind inside the smoke. Mason stayed with the Queen. And then the signal stopped. Back on Earth, the leaders saw the last message. Claire stood in front of them. She said, "We are not alone, and we are not the rulers anymore." She held up the ball. It was no longer glowing. It was watching. The quiet after the battle was heavy. Ships from Earth and its colonies gathered in space. Many were damaged. Some were lost forever. People did not talk much. They only looked at the stars and thought about what had happened. Claire sat with the metal ball on the table. It was dark now, no light inside. She touched it carefully, like a stone and heavy, like a stone from the deep sea. She said, "It has stopped glowing, but it is not gone. It is waiting." Queen Evelyn was tired, but still strong. She stood before her people and said, "We have lost many, but we have not lost hope." She looked at the young men and women around her. She said, "We must learn fast and act faster." Mason Burke had returned from the last fight. His clothes were torn and his face had cuts, but his eyes were clear. He told the Queen, "They do not want to kill us only to take what we have. They want to be us." Evelyn looked at him hard. She said, "Then we must show them what it means to be human." The leaders agreed to work with Claire and Mason to study the ball and the shapes. Scientists, soldiers, and leaders all joined the effort. They worked day and night. They tested the ball, tried to speak to it, tried to understand what it wanted. One day, Claire found something new. The ball reacted when she sang a simple song from Earth. The light flickered and then slowly grew. It was the first time it seemed to respond to something other than machines. Evelyn said, "Maybe it is not just a machine.
Guys.
Maybe it is trying to learn our feelings." Claire smiled for the first time in weeks. She said, "Yes, maybe that is true." But not all were happy with this idea. Some leaders wanted to destroy the ball and everything like it. They feared the shapes and their power. They said, "They are too dangerous to live," Mason said. "Fear can make us lose more than any enemy." The Queen listened to both sides. She said, "We must protect ourselves, but also try to understand we will not win if we fight alone." Then came a message. It was weak and broken, but clear. A small ship had returned. Its pilot was a young boy named Luke Hayes. He had been missing for months. He said, "I saw them. They are not monsters. They are lost, like us." Luke told his story. He said, "The shapes are made from a place where many minds are joined. They watch to learn and live through others. But they do not know how to be kind or cruel, only what they see." Claire thought about this. She said if they can learn kindness, maybe they can be friends. The Queen made a decision. She said, "Send a team to meet them, not with guns, but with open hands." Mason was chosen to lead. Claire went with him. It took the ball and some gifts from Earth. They wanted to show that humans could be both strong and kind. When they reached the place where the shapes lived, it was quiet and dark. The shapes moved slowly around them but did not attack. Mason said, "We are not enemies." Claire held the ball up. The shapes stopped and a soft light surrounded them. It was like a greeting. Then the ball showed pictures again. This time it showed the humans' past, their mistakes, their love, and their fear. The shapes watched and changed. Their smooth bodies became brighter. Mason said, "They understand now." The meeting lasted hours, but no one was tired. The shapes learned about humans, and humans learned that not all who are different want to harm. When Mason and Claire returned, they brought hope. Evelyn smiled. She said maybe the food chain is not about ruling or killing. Maybe it is about learning and sharing. The empire began to rebuild. It was not the same as before. People were wiser and kinder. They knew they were not alone. They knew others watched and waited. The metal ball stayed in the Queen's hands. It was no longer just a strange thing, but a symbol. A symbol that even when others think they are the strongest, there is always more to learn. And far away, the shapes moved through the stars. They did not want to rule anymore. They wanted to live. Humans had changed the food chain, not with power, but with understanding. And that was the true strength of humanity.